Sit down if you want to.
Right in the middle of what's going on.
I'm in the middle of an interrogation.
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
The middle children of history, man.
Middle of the day, Alfred?
Please, take a seat there.
Right now, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Stop the middle, it's a base hit!
Meeting in the middle.
Like.
They fought for the freedom of middle.
The middle of a war!
Freaking ridiculous!
Why don't we have a seat and talk it over?
No! Not the middle seat!
Sharpen up those pitchforks and torches and get ready for another episode of the Middle Seats podcast, hopefully presented by Quiznos now. We talked about it enough at the last episode that I hope finally that the sponsorship money's come through. Nate's our business manager, so he would know better. Nate, has the sponsorship money come through?
How do I have more responsibilities now? Business manager and editor and Jake Beardcomber? It's too much.
You're going to trust Jake with money? I'm not going to.
That's a fair point.
Which is ironic because I'm currently working in an accounting department.
The Middle Seats is the best seat of the house for all things movies and entertainment. I'm your lead investigator tonight, Andrew Auger. Let's meet the rest of these suspects. We kind of already did. I'm going to rule out this guy as the prime suspect because there's no way he could ever commit a crime except being too adorable, Mr. Nate Lungarini, which I don't think is a felony, Nate.
I certainly hope not, or else you might have to lock me up with the kittens and puppies and... I don't know. I feel like you can have a cute fish, right?
In jail? I've never been, but...
We'll roll with it.
Cute fish, yeah. I actually do know one crime that Nate committed. It was speeding on his way to my heart.
This is getting out of hand already. We're like not even 2 minutes into this podcast, and we're already going at it.
He may not be the sharpest tool in the bunch, but he is a tool, Mr. Jake Hensler.
Wow. Straight and to the point on your part. Very concise. You knew exactly what you wanted to say and how to say it.
Yeah, it's not as funny when you don't defend yourself, though, because I just feel like a bully. And that's not me at heart.
Good.
Well, that's your job. We got the accountant, we got the editor, and now we got the bully Drew.
Who's McFly's, like, nemesis? Biff. I'm Biff. I'm the Biff of the podcast. The Middle Seats podcast, like I said, is the best seat in the house for all things movies and entertainment. If you're joining us for the first time, we divide our show into 3/3.5 segments. We go into Lobby Talk, which is a topic proposed by one of the crew members, where we just kind of talk about it back and forth. That takes about 10 to 15 minutes of your time. Nate will be pitching that in just a second. Then we're going to give you an update on our box office draft game. I'm not very happy, folks. I mean, I'm generally not a happy person, but I'm especially not happy, and we're going to get into why in a little bit. Then we have a couple of exciting news items, and then we are going to go into our feature review, which is of a movie a lot of you have been seeing, which I'm surprised about. Pleasantly surprised. A lot of people are going out to see the murder mystery by Rian Johnson, Knives Out. So we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. If you are watching this video on YouTube, this video will only include the Lobby Talk, box office, and news portions of the podcast. We have a whole separate video for our Knives Out review. Please join us there. Say you're in a hurry. If you don't have time to listen to the whole thing, there are time codes in the description below. You can skip around and get to the parts that you want to hear. Hopefully one of the parts you want to hear is Lobby Talk. Let's start there.
Let's all go to the lobby.
You're in the lobby? What do you look like?
I will blow up the block before you can make the lobby.
Alrighty, so my turn for Lobby Talk, and I actually lucked out and got a very easy topic for us to discuss today. By the time this podcast comes out, my procrastination pending, Star Wars will be right on the corner, which means this is our time to geek out and figure out all our weird, crazy Middle Seats fan theories. All right, so lots to talk about, obviously. This is going to be the end of the new trilogy, starting off of the pretty good Force Awakens to the pretty bad Last Jedi.
Whoa. That is not Middle Seats condoned. Let's watch your mouth there.
That is not general consensus, but go on.
I just.
I saw it coming, too. I had a Force vision.
So, anyway, end of a new trilogy, rather. And JJ's back. So, we'll shape the conversation two ways. I want to hear a pitch from you guys of what you want to happen. Maybe like a little bit of a reach. And something you think absolutely will happen. So let's start off with Drew. You don't get to go first very often.
I don't. That's true.
Yeah, because if you're not first, you're last.
I was going to say first is the worst, second is the best, and help you guys out, but sure. There's a lot riding on this movie. I mean, there's a lot of pressure, obviously, especially after Last Jedi, which, as Nate kind of alluded to, was a very polarizing film. But also, the fact that you're wrapping up a saga of this is the 9th movie now, and you're not even counting all the spin-offs that kind of inform things and the TV shows and inform things in the Skywalker saga. There's a lot that you got to do. What I want is for them to stick to the guns a little bit of what Rian Johnson did. Now, I understand a lot of people were upset about some of the decisions in The Last Jedi, and that's understandable. But I think to kind of backtrack on them now would not be a great thing. And one specific thing I really want them to do that I really liked and kind of keyed into the themes of Last Jedi that I love the most, the idea that anybody can be like a hero, anybody can grow up to be a Jedi hero. It doesn't have to be, hereditary or anything like that. Leave Rey's parentage out of this. I kind of really like that little twist in Last Jedi where Kylo has a big conversation with her about how she's nobody. Her parents weren't anybody special. She's possibly not related to anybody that we think she could be related to as far as Force sensitivity goes. I like the idea that they're just people that grow up and they have a chosen one / destiny aspect to them. And I think Daisy Ridley plays that kind of wide-eyedness well. So I think undercutting that by making it like, oh, she's the third cousin to Kylo Ren or something like that, or you never know how they would tie it in. Not everybody has to be connected to everybody, which is ironic to say because the thing that I expect is that the Skywalker family obviously will have a very big part in this, but also the Solo family and that main core group. I expect Luke, Leia, Han to show up as some kind of Force vision at some point in the movie. I think Harrison Ford's in this movie, and we haven't heard anything about it. I think there's no shot that with this big wrap-up, they didn't entice him to come back one more time.
I'm with you on Rey. I'm kind of hoping they don't backtrack what Rian Johnson did because it would just feel a little weird to do. Even if people didn't like it, just adjust and adapt accordingly. I'm kind of with you there. Although we agree a lot on Last Jedi. I do like what you said about the Force ghosts because I agree. Those are some of the most iconic characters in history, and this is wrapping the Skywalker story as a whole. This is the last time we'll ever get these characters in a new light, correct?
Correct.
Right.
That's what they say, at least.
Right, that's what they say, right.
Until the next trilogy. Ooh.
Yeah, 30 years from now.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
So I'm with you. I'm assuming we'll get all those characters back because Disney and Star Wars love nostalgia. So what I want to happen is kind of the opposite. It's actually what I don't want to happen, and I don't want the Emperor, Mr. Palpatine, to have too large of a role.
Mr. Palpatine. So much respect.
It's not like a big gripe, but I feel like there's a little bit of, in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, there's a little bit of too much nostalgia here and there. Like there's a lot of pullback to the original trilogy to get people going, to get nostalgia factor in. And some of that's okay, but I don't want them to do that too much. I want to see these characters get their own light, their own arcs, their own time in this story. So if Palpatine's in it, if the Emperor's in it, and they have a good idea for him, fine. I really don't want him to be in the movie that much. I want to see these new heroes and villains fight each other or work together in the Last Jedi's case, whatever that may be. I want to see them get the light. So that's kind of what I want. I want to see them focus on these characters, and obviously I want them to make the movie good. I want it to wrap up well. And what I think will happen, I didn't get this far.
That's good. Expect the unexpected.
Oh, boy.
I like first of all, Mr. Palpatine sounds like a third grade science teacher.
It really does.
He's lost all intimidation factor now, thanks.
It's like the Adult Swim Robot Chicken version. You know?
Exactly. I threw the whole Senate at him. One of my favorites. So do you seriously not have an answer? Or?
No, I'm being honest. I was working. I pretty much went from work to here, and I just didn't have enough time to come up with the second part of this topic.
I think we need to leave this in and shame him, Nate.
Shame.
Shame on.
That's all right.
Mr. Palpatine would have been very disappointed you didn't turn in your homework.
Alrighty. So I'll start with what I expect to happen. I'm expecting that we're going to have like the big Avengers style brawl where we combine all of our characters in one space and do something crazy. I think my hope with that would be that we somehow combine lots of Jedis with lots of spaceships. I don't know how they do it, but I feel like we've never seen someone Force interact with a moving spaceship like in a big final battle kind of moment. Like we've gone lots of leaps in this trilogy where people are holding blaster shots or making real force projections that travel planets. I want to see someone like force move a Death Star type thing or like a really big spaceship. I don't know, something big and epic. I think that's what's coming. I think that's pretty safe to expect. Like, this is the final trilogy, so there's going to be a big final force moment, I think.
And I think it's reasonable to expect that we haven't seen any of that yet in the trailers. We've seen snippets of the final battle, I think. Like the part where they're all on, like, space horses, like, running on top of that ship. And then you've also got the spaceships, like, lining up to go to battle with each other. That's elements of the final battle, I think. But I think that Kylo and Rey duel out on the water, I think that's pretty early on. That's just a gut feeling I have, because we've seen so much of it. I think that's, like, first act, second act.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And like that was the culmination of Force Awakens, was leading up to that fight. So if that's the finale for another movie, I feel like that's like a dip. That's less stakes than what we should get out of a third trilogy, you know?
Yeah.
There's a part of me that is kind of expecting it to play a little on the safer side, because I feel like that's what Force Awakens was, and Disney liked what JJ did with it. There was more backlash to Last Jedi, so I think they got him back to play it a little bit safe, and I'm a little worried about that, truthfully. I'm hoping it's not too safe and it's not too pleasing and generic. I like the risks.
Right. To defend J.J. Abrams a little bit, we grade him on the Rian Johnson scale, subverting expectations. J.J. Abrams, he has got his whole mystery box thing. He's very big into secrecy and surprises and stuff like that. Now, granted, a lot of the surprises that he has built his career on have been things that we could call like a year out. Like when he cast Benedict Cumberbatch in Star Trek Into Darkness, and we were all like, he's Khan, like, duh. And then, no, he was like, and then they're like, no, his name is John Harrison. He's like, no, he's Khan. And then sure enough, he was Khan. So it's like, okay, you're bad at this, but you're at least trying. It's different than if they hired like and this is just the first name that comes to mind because he's also a Star Wars director. If they hired someone like Ron Howard, then I could see like, yeah, they're definitely looking into playing it safe. But J.J. Abrams does push things a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I think people are thinking more of what he did with Force Awakens.
Right.
Is he going to handle the property a little bit more bravely in this one? We'll have to wait and see.
They're less worried that this will be polarizing because Last Jedi was so polarizing, and the existence of Solo was polarizing in itself, even if the movie wasn't.
Right, the announcement was backlashed.
And where's Obi-Wan Kenobi movie?
Right. My whole write-up of Solo was basically like, this movie's fine, but it doesn't need to exist, and it never justifies existing. Basically, they're on a down streak, and they needed somebody to stabilize the ship. And J.J. Abrams is a good person to do that, because, yes, Force Awakens leaned a lot on A New Hope. I think we just all hope that this is not going to be just a redux of Return of the Jedi. Are we all on the same page there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Better be.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a lot more to say on Star Wars in the coming weeks for sure, when we go into our deep dive, hopefully in our next episode. But for now, let's transition into the box office draft.
Let's make some money!
All you care about is money.
The box office disaster.
Money, money, money.
Star Wars is my movie, and that usually sounds pretty good, but as Nate's going to explain, it's not that simple for me right now.
All right, so in terms of new releases, everyone's team is the same, and Jake has decided not to trade movies. So everyone's in a stable place, and it's just seeing how the money is coming in. And I've got to say, my combo of Ford and Ferrari, but mostly Frozen 2 by a large margin, is keeping me with a very healthy early lead. And I have a lot of big releases coming up in February and March between Mulan and Birds of Prey. We won't talk about Bad Boys for Life until we're a little bit more confident in it. So Ford versus Ferrari has held very, very well. It's the new prototype dad movie that's just raking in at consistently $20 million a week, which has been great. And then Frozen 2 is just going to be one of the biggest animated releases of all time, period. So that's where we are there. Let's move to Jake first. He's only got one movie on the board with Knives Out, which obviously we're reviewing today. And that has actually done quite well for Jake.
I mean, why wouldn't it have? I know how to drive movies. And Andrew's so tight.
I'm just so mad at myself.
So Knives Out it started tracking very well right up to release, but it was definitely a dark horse going into this draft. And I think as of now, Jake, it looks like a very good call for you. Might make $100 million with this movie, which is very good for a original property with no ties to other franchises.
That's excellent. And I think there might be a little bit of awards buzz for it too. Maybe not in the main awards, but definitely in screenplay. So it could carry well into January, February too.
And I would just like to point out that my only movie to be released has grossed more than both of Andrew's. Just wanted to just rub dirt in the wound. That's all.
All right, so that brings us to our poor buddy Drew. So confident off that first pick, Star Wars, that he forgot to draft the rest of his team. Charlie's Angels, as we talked about last podcast, tanked. It was an absolute bomb. It's made less than $20 million at the time of this recording, and probably won't by the end of its box office run. It's made a pittance on a weekly scale. And to make things worse, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood has not done as well as expected. It's good and it's holding okay, but the big swell to see this movie seemed to be less of a wave and more of a nice little stream, a little low tide kind of deal. So it'll continue to make money. It'll be kind of like a Ford versus Ferrari where a lot of people will see it as they get to it. But as Christmas rolls around, there's going to be a lot more competition for this type of movie, and it might lose its market pretty soon. And as we talked about last podcast, he had to drop Godzilla versus Kong for Sonic the Hedgehog, which is a coin flip of whether that makes money or not at this point. So it really all hinges on Star Wars for Drew.
Like a gold coin, Nate? Get it? Because Sonic?
It's a ring.
Oh. I'm taking L's in this entire segment all year
He's
long.
just taking L's everywhere.
Yeah, I knew Charlie's Angels was going to be a problem when I went on opening night, and it was me, my friend, and then just like one other woman. Like on opening night in a 300-seat auditorium. And I was like, well, I hope I don't have this in any of my drafts. And then I checked, and of course, lo and behold, the person who invented the game is going to lose. I don't know. Star Wars has to be a mega hit.
For you to have any chance whatsoever, yes.
Yeah, I just don't want to come in last.
Charlie's Angels is essentially making the amount of money at the box office that like your dad would give you for lunch that day if you like your mom forgot to pack it. Like that's the kind of money it's making.
It's the allowance of Bill Gates' grandkids.
Yeah, basically.
All right, so next time we record, we should have a good idea of how Star Wars is doing. So Drew will obviously shoot up. It's just a matter of how high he goes. Are we going to reach the stars, or are we going to be in like the Sarlacc pits? We'll find out.
Although I would argue that 2 episodes from now will give us a clearer picture, because when we record that first one, we'll have the opening weekend totals. But Last Jedi opened huge and then dropped pretty big. I mean, dropped, like still made like 100 million week 2. But, you know, it didn't hold like Force Awakens did. So it ended up with 600 mil as opposed to 900 mil. I need like 750 from Rise of Skywalker.
And you are not the only person with big releases coming out. Jake has Jumanji Next Level coming out and will be out by the time you listen to this podcast. And Cats is also opening the same weekend as Star Wars, which is, in my opinion, another coin flop.
Let's lump those two together for sure.
We're gonna get that Taylor Swift cult. I'm calling it.
Oh my
You've
God.
said that literally every single time.
It's all I'm banking on.
I don't think it's gonna work for you.
Dude, she's definitely like in the movie for like 15 minutes.
That's enough.
Yeah, I'm much more interested to see how Jumanji does, because it definitely had a lot of hype coming out of how well the last movie did, but it's also slated against a lot more movies that are going to follow it. So it might open good, but I don't know if it's going to hold as well because it has so much competition for its target audience.
Yeah, and it's the reverse this time, where it doesn't follow Star Wars. It comes before it. So that was a very interesting approach, in my opinion. Like, originally, I think it was slated to go up against it, which I agree, move off of that. But why not go on Christmas? Like, it would have dominated Christmas. It's just an interesting approach to me. They'll still make their 200 mil minimum. But, like, I don't know. I think it might cost it, like, a good 50, 100 million.
So I think it's just a waiting game at this point, but that's your box office update, Drew.
So when you guys go to see Star Wars, you're definitely going to see a couple of trailers that we're going to be talking about on our news segment today.
And this just in, a Newsbreak special report.
This is breaking news. I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
All right, so we've got a classic Marvel versus DC quarry. And I think we're going to start with Marvel here just because we're going to transition Disney properties here. Let's talk about the trailer for Black Widow.
What brings you home?
I heard you had to leave in a hurry.
I've lived a lot of lives, but I'm done running from my past. We have to go back to where it all started.
Still fits. Family. Back together again.
It's gonna be a hell of a reunion.
Black Widow is the start of Phase 4 of the MCU. It is the 24th film in the now, it will be 12-year history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is directed by Kate Shortland. It stars Scarlett Johansson, of course. Black Widow in her first ever solo adventure. She's been in all of the Avengers movies. She's been in a bunch of the Captain America movies. She was in Iron Man 2. She now gets the spotlight to herself. This is a prequel to an extent. We don't know how honest Marvel's being about that. We know for sure that a good chunk of the plot takes place in between Civil War and Infinity War, when Black Widow made the decision to help out the fugitive Steve Rogers. She ends up on the run with him eventually, and I think this movie's going to kind of take place in that interim time where she's on the run from the American government, because William Hurt is back as Thunderbolt Ross as the Secretary of State, but then she's also going to be reckoning with things that happened in her past when she was a KGB operative and she was trained to be a super assassin at a very young age. Florence Pugh is in this film, who has had a big 2019. She was in Midsommar. She's in Little Women. She had a very big year. Rachel Weisz had a really big 2018 with The Favorite. She's in this as well. And David Harbour is having a big decade period with Stranger Things, and he was Hellboy. So, that's quality. It comes out on May 1st. Guys, let's talk about this first look. Jake, what did you think of the Black Widow trailer?
I thought it looks cool. I thought they revealed slightly more than they usually do, which I was a little surprised by. I just didn't expect them to reveal her entire family and her fighting her sister at the same time. I mean, at least for a minute they fight, but I wasn't expecting that. They also gave you the first look at the villain already. I just feel like they revealed a little bit more than they usually do, but I liked it. I thought it looked cool. It's got a bit of a Winter Soldier vibe, which I love Winter Soldier, so I'm down for that. The music is pretty cool. I like the casting choices. I think all around it looks good, and per usual, Marvel can't fail.
Hopefully.
Right. Hopefully they don't.
Honest at this point to say that they've had very few genuine clunkers. So, I mean, you have a certain expectation in your head, but Nate, where do you think this is going to land on the MCU scale?
Hard to say, obviously, from a trailer, but I have to say I'm a little underwhelmed by this trailer. I think action-wise, it looks great in classic Marvel. Like you said, Jake, very Captain America-esque, where it's more of the spy element. Obviously, because Black Widow's a spy. Duh. But the thing that's underwhelming me is the voiceovers. A lot of the plot stuff seems very generic, almost too generic of oh, you don't know everything about my past kind of stuff. Got to go back to the beginning where it all began kind of stuff. It's just thriller spy movie cliches at this point. Unfortunately, this movie is coming out after we know that Black Widow dies in Endgame.
Wait,
what? Get out of here. So it feels weird to me exploring her family after her Endgame arc was the fact that the Avengers were her family, Right. So I don't know if I expected an origin story, because this clearly isn't, but I think that would have worked a little bit well where it fits in the MCU.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying. But from that route, I guess they could go, maybe her family betrays her, or maybe they're not as helpful as they thought, or maybe they all die and she loses all of them. There are options to fulfill that arc, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to stress that this is just trailer talk. Right. I'm not trying to analyze the movie too quick.
It's got to be. My question is this movie coming too late? And that kind of goes off of what you were saying, Nate, now that her arc in the main contemporary line was complete. Like, we all know she's dead. It actually, funny little anecdote, Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson were doing like an actors on actors interview, and they were talking about this movie, and Chris Evans asked that same question that you did, and he was like, it's the biggest movie of all time. I could spoil it wherever. And he's like, yeah, that's absolutely right. Everybody knows her fate at this point. That's why when I tweeted out the initial trailer, a lot of people that follow me were speculating, okay, what's the catch? Is there something about the Soul Stone that has to do with this? Is there something to do with, you know, is there a clue to her possible resurrection for future films? And maybe not necessarily. There's no way to get that from this trailer. But if we're talking about just a standalone adventure on its own, wouldn't this have gone better somewhere in between Civil War and Infinity War as far as the release schedule goes? Like, put this before Doctor Strange or something like that.
Yeah, or even right before Infinity War.
Yeah. I say that because I'm kind of with Nate where, I mean, I'm not underwhelmed. I think it looks fun. I just don't have expectations that are above mid-tier MCU. Like, I don't expect this to be as good as, like, Infinity War.
Winter Soldier.
Right. Or even something
Thor
like...
Ragnarok.
Yeah, or even something like Thor Ragnarok or Black Panther, which, like, aren't top tier, but they're, like, mid to top tier, if that makes sense.
Right.
I'm expecting a solid, fun movie, but I also don't have huge expectations because, I mean, we've already seen the peak. It's going to take a lot, something game-changing. Like, I'm very excited for Eternals next year more than this because that's something we haven't seen before, and I bet that's going to be wild. And once we get to the multiverse stuff, that'll be wild. But this seems like a kind of a safe re-entry into the MCU after almost a year off, and I'm not going to begrudge them that. That's fine. I'm not overly excited.
Yeah, and I'm excited for a low-stakes Marvel movie, too. Like, we don't need the end of the world every movie, and obviously not after Endgame. So,
right.
Excited for that at the very least.
That's a good point.
That's why I think Spider-Man Far From Home was a really nice follow-up, nice little coda/epilogue to Phase 3. Because it reckoned with what happened in Endgame, but it wasn't like earth-shattering events. It was very personal to Spider-Man himself. If we get more adventures like that, I'm cool with it. I'm in for that.
That's what a lot of them were beforehand.
Right. So summer 2020 is shaping up to be a big rumble between Marvel and DC, because not only do they have movies butting heads with each other for the first time in what feels like a while, they have their two top female heroes going after each other, which will be very interesting, and that transitions into the first ever trailer for Wonder Woman 1984.
Have you ever been in love? A long, long time ago.
Welcome to the future. Life is good, but it can be better.
You know what you need to do.
Nothing good is born from lies. And greatness is not what you think.
Now, Wonder Woman, if you remember back to 2017, was the big hit of the year. There were a bunch of Marvel superhero movies that came out, but Wonder Woman, I think, kind of dominated the conversation a little bit. It was a huge, huge hit for DC throughout that summer. Gal Gadot, obviously back as Wonder Woman, playing the character for the fourth time, I believe. Yeah, fourth time. Chris Pine coming back almost inexplicably, if you know what happened in the original Wonder Woman. But that's a big part of the mystery, which we'll speculate on in a moment. Pedro Pascal is in this one. Kristen Wiig is in this one. They're both probably playing villains. Kristen Wiig's character is based off a character from the comics called Cheetah. I forget who Pedro Pascal is playing, but he clearly is not a good guy if you look at the trailer.
He's not typically, but...
Yeah. Patty Jenkins is back as director. June 5th, the release date for this one. So about a month after Black Widow. Big, high-profile, female-led superhero sequel. Nate, what did you get from this trailer?
I'm a little more nervous about this one, if I'm going to be honest. And I might be the Debbie Downer here just because I wasn't as big on the original Wonder Woman between the two of you. I remember you guys both really liking it.
Yeah, I think I saw it like 3 or 4 times.
Woof.
I worked at a theater at the time, so I didn't have to pay for it. But it was still a good, like, I'm going to go on my break and watch Wonder Woman movie, you know?
Well, tell you what, I'll frame it like this. If you're a fan of the first Wonder Woman, you're going to get a lot of the stuff that you probably liked, which includes big, dramatic, slow-mo action shots and moving at weird speeds. That kind of bugged me the first time around, just because she looks like an action figure being held by a child flying around the screen. There's no right movement there. It bugs me. But anyway, we get like the weird McDonald's Toy Story armor. I don't know what that is.
That's apparently speculation-wise. Sorry to interrupt, but it's a very popular costume from the comics. I'm not a big, huge DC extraordinaire. I know more about Marvel, I would say, but apparently that's a very big, like, Wonder Woman fans lost their shit when they saw that.
All right, well, all the more power to them. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade with just a trailer. It looks too action figure for me. It looks kind of plastic. But Gal Gadot looks like she's having fun. Very surprised to see Chris Pine back here. I think this plot has to involve time travel in some capacity because it just makes way too much sense. They show the clock a million times, or the watch rather. Chris Pine is inexplicably back after that.
And the same age.
And I think this is also going to address the big question that a lot of people had going into Justice League. Did Wonder Woman just stand by during World War II? That makes no sense. She had to have had morals to try to help that war like she did the First World War. So if there's time travel involved, maybe she physically wasn't present in that time to help out. And that might make more sense that way. So it looks like the good parts that I did enjoy are back in this movie, but it looks like the style is very similar to the original Wonder Woman, which I'm a little less excited about. Soundtrack's good, though.
Yeah, the techno, which, Jake, you said sounded like the Atomic Blonde soundtrack. You getting any other kind of vibes like that?
I mean, yeah, woman action movie, for starters.
Way to use your caveman brain.
Yeah, woman fight bad guy. No, I do think it is from Atomic Blonde. I do like, and again, I like the music. The music's cool. But I'm kind of with what Nate said about Black Widow. I was a little underwhelmed by this. And I actually also, same thing with Black Widow trailer. I think they revealed a lot more than I would have expected. Like, they revealed that Chris Pine is back and she's got new armor. Like, save us something. I feel like those are two pretty big points for the movie.
I feel like they were never going to hold the Chris Pine thing because, I mean, he's a bankable name. You can't not put him on the poster,
true.
Especially if he plays a big part in the movie. But I agree about the armor.
Yeah, I'm like, put that in the final trailer before release. Get people that more amped. Like, you already told us we probably have two villains and Chris Pine. I don't need to know the armor's there also. Give it, like, pull back. Hold something back.
Yeah.
Overall, I liked the first Wonder Woman. I hope it's good, but the trailer didn't overly impress me. And like Nate said while we were watching it, that's not how guns work.
Oh my God.
Or how lightning works. How do you whip lightning in hopes?
Oh, come on. That's so cool, though. Ugh.
See, I think that's the difference between Marvel and DC a little bit. Marvel, they do creative things with powers, and you cannot deny that this is creative. But this looks plastic to me. This doesn't look grounded in the movie's own reality, let alone our reality of how they do their super speed, super strength, lightning whip, bungee jumping. I don't even know what to call that.
And not to blame everything on him in the DC extended universe, but all the movies are based off of Zack Snyder's style, and that doesn't work for everyone. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, Zack Snyder's action scenes are very much built on the speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. And yeah, I guess that doesn't fit for everyone. I agree there were moments of the original Wonder Woman that had that kind of plastic, especially the third act.
Oh, yeah. I've ranted about that before, I think.
I think this looks really fun, to be honest. I dug the trailer quite a bit. I might just have a kink for, like, 80s set stuff like this.
Between the two trailers, I am more excited for this than Black Widow.
Okay.
I think I'm the opposite, but interesting.
I think it looks more unique and more colorful, especially. I mean, I love the neon look. I love that there's, like, an action scene set in a mall, which, like, this is a big year for malls between this and Stranger Things.
Yeah, it looked like it might have been the same set. Honestly.
You think so?
It looks very similar with the escalators going up and down, but like where they're positioned on the like the floor and like the open space in front of it, it actually looks like it's a similar set. Which, if it is, that's gonna throw some people off.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be shocked, and I think it looks like a good time. I don't expect it to be like a masterpiece or anything like that, or even like I said, another one where I don't expect it to be a top tier superhero movie. But I was just so surprised with everything DC's gotten wrong. They got the Wonder Woman character right. It looks like the gal is doing some pretty cool stuff here again. I'm really excited to see that they are utilizing the lasso a little bit more this time, because I felt like they didn't use the lasso as much as maybe like her swords and her wristlets in the first one.
Bracelets, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see that they're using that in creative ways. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a hot take on this one. It looks colorful, it looks light on its feet, it looks fun.
I wonder how quickly it's going to take for me to get sick of all the references to Thor Ragnarok, because this literally looks like Wonder Woman Ragnarok edition.
It's true. Yeah,
I was thinking that a little bit too. Guardians of the Galaxy-ish, Ragnarok-y kind of thing.
I bet they had a World War II script written, and then they saw Thor Ragnarok and threw it out. But that comes out on June 5th. So like I said, about a month after Black Widow. So those are probably the 1-2 punch of really, really big movies next summer. And of course, with Rise of Skywalker coming out, you'll get trailers of them on the big screen coming up soon.
Do you think Wonder Woman will also introduce the Invisible Mobile?
The Invisible Jet, you mean?
Oh, sure.
Anyway,
get out of here.
Moving on. That will do it for our news segment and for this portion of the Middle Seats podcast. For our full review of Knives Out, check that out in a different video. If you want the full podcast, listen for Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, anywhere you can go to get your podcast intake. For Nate Lungarini and Jay Kensler, I'm Andrew Auger. Keep that seat warm, everyone. We'll be back soon.